Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome back to the Lockdown LitFest virtual studio, where, boy, do we have an event for you today. There are some people it's a pleasure to know. There are some it's a joy to like. There are some it's a privilege to admire. And there are a rare few that it's an honor to be able to respect. My guest today is, for me, all four. A dynamic, right-minded, and inspirational speaker, author, educator, innovator, and get this, urban farmer. Stephen Ritz is a South Bronx teacher who believes that students should not have to leave their communities to live, to learn, and to earn in a better one. An internationally acclaimed award-winning teacher, he's the author of the best-selling book, The Power of a Plant, and the founder of Green Bronx Machine. He's known as America's favorite teacher. He's responsible for creating the first edible classroom in the world, which he's evolved into the National Health, Wellness and Learning Center. He and his students have grown more than 85,000 pounds, that's weight, of vegetables in the South Bronx. And in the process, Mr. Ritz has moved school attendance from 40% to 93% daily and helped provide over 2,200 youth jobs in the Bronx. He was a top 10 finalist for the Global Teacher Prize. He was named Global Humanitarian, Food Tank Hero, TEDx Prize winner, and a global food educator. And he has presented at the Obama White House 3 times. I could go on. We're going to have a chat. Stephen Ritz, allow me to say in a bit Kermit-like, Stephen Ritz is in the Lockdown LitFest Festival. A very warm welcome. Nice to see you.
Assalamu alaikum, and great to see you, man. It is just a thrill, an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to see you. Thank you for having me. Shukran, shukran, shukran.
Well, I'm locked down in the heartland of England in my father's house. We lost my mum just before lockdown happened, so I'm looking after my 80-year-old dad. Whereabouts in the world are you? I'm assuming the Bronx.
I am in the Bronx, in my home, in my living room. Obviously, we have a virtual background. Otherwise, you would have seen a true urban farm 12 stories up in the middle of the Bronx, where we are growing exponential amounts of food in my home. Go figure.
We're seeing terrible scenes on world media coming out of the States right now. Not only COVID-19 related, but also Mr. Floyd related as well. Are you safe? Are you well? What's the atmosphere there at the minute?
So, thank you for asking. Yes, I am safe. Am I well? Well, thank God physically I'm well, but make no doubt about it. I am disturbed, I am perturbed, I am angry, and I am upset. This is yet another ugly chapter in American history that has been compounded by the coronavirus. But I think, the coronavirus has really been for all of us an X-ray into society, both in the United States and around the world. In a very clear black and white diagram that we can hold up to the light, we see exactly where our priorities are and aren't. It is abundantly obvious, but the large coronavirus is really a symptom. It's a symptom of 3 larger viruses: the virus of racism, the virus of greed, and the virus of corruption. So we are at an inflection point where I hope we never go back to normal, but ultimately get us all back to better. I'm just so sorry for all the loss and all the pain that we as very ignorant and arrogant human beings and the most selfish species on the planet have to put ourselves and our co-inhabitants through.
Amen to that, Stephen. Amen to that. Now listen, can we start with sort of origins? I mentioned at least 3 times in my introduction the word teacher, and a good few more times the word educator. But you never planned to be a teacher. So can we come back to the young Stephen Ritz? Where did he spring from? What was he going to do before education became your thing?
Well, quite honestly, I'm still waiting for the NBA to call me back. Hopefully you and someone over there has a connection to the Knicks. But, I'm willing to talk to other teams, and this is the last year I'm willing to contemplate getting in shape if they so gather their senses. I became literally a teacher by accident during the teacher crisis of the early 1980s. And remarkably, while in Europe playing basketball, before I left, my mother encouraged me to take a test for the teaching profession. And remarkably, I passed. And 2 months later, when I blew out my knee and came home in a cast from my ankle to my hip in search of a job, I got a call. And I got a call from South Bronx High School, which was the only standing building in an 8-block radius due to the aftermath of the first wave of destruction that hit the South Bronx in the 60s and 70s. And I found myself a teacher, and it was love at first bite, and I haven't looked back since.
Well, tell us what the school was like when you first took up your poster. Tell us what the pupils were like. Tell us what the school was like. What did you have by way of resources?
I had no training, no background, no professional development. I was given keys to my classroom, an attendance roster with 5 sets of children, 20 pieces of chalk, and these cardinal words of advice. Good luck. And that was it. And I was assigned the most difficult children in the school, but realized this was before computers, before digitization. People had no idea what was going on. And the South Bronx at that time, fueled by the cocaine insanity and the crack epidemic, it was just a horrific time for New York City and the nation as a whole. Remarkably, I was able to find a connection with children, largely around my basketball prowess, my interest in hip hop music, my dashing looks and charming personality. This was pre-cheese hat and pre-bow tie. My ability to jump over a desk when needed, because my legs still functioned well then. They can too if the Knicks are listening. And the way we went, I started a career where I fell in love with the power and the possibility of changing lives. Teachers have always been in loco parentis, and in communities like mine, the fact that children trusted me with their lives, parents trusted me with their children, I felt this tremendous sense of obligation and commitment to steward and shepherd them to a better, brighter life. And it's been nonstop ever since. It's been a remarkable ride. I haven't always been successful. I always say I'm a bit of an insurgent educator. In many ways, I was years ahead of this whole community school movement. Remarkably, 30 years later, people caught up to me where I was 20 years ago. As we speak, I'm responsible and involved with some of the most progressive and phenomenal schools in the UAE, which were largely plans that I had hoped to open in some of the poorest districts in America, but the Board of Ed at that time didn't see fit to do. So it's been a remarkable ride. And then also my health issues as well. I've not always been the slim, dapper, sexy young man you see in front of you, but along the way, I got a little hungry working with children. At one point, my weight, as you well know, swelled up to 330 pounds. Yeah. And when the Obamas were elected to the White House and I went to hear Mrs. Obama speak and stand outside that White House, when she spoke those famous words, the way we treat our children is indicative of who we are as a nation. And I looked down at my belly and couldn't see my sneakers. I knew I had to change. And 110 pounds later, in 6 months, I went on to become a champion of change and really got involved with the whole food movement, urban farming, urban gardening, and to think that my students and I have put gardens inside and outside the Obama White House. And there's a replica of my classroom in the U.S. Botanic Gardens, and now across UAE in some of the best schools is absolutely a testimony to what is possible. I like to, I jokingly say, and you remember from Hope to the Pope, I was blessed and honored to meet His Highness, His Holiness, Pope Francis. So it's been a remarkable ride. I do have a little 30-second video that gives a little context to the work that we do in my classroom and shows the technology. So you can cue that up. We'll take a look, and then we'll resume with your questioning right after.
And here's the video.
This is our skyline. These are our shops, our supermarkets, our windows, our doors, our homes, and our yards in the poorest congressional district in America. This is our soil. Here, we are growing something greater for children who love to learn, to make, to nurture, and to taste. This is Green Bronx Machine.
Fantastic piece of footage. Thank you for sharing it with us, Stephen. If memory serves, when you and I first spoke, you reminded me of a fantastic epiphany, that hinge point that you had, which was during a moment in a classroom when you'd been given a cardboard box of resources that led to you having a light bulb moment, is the way I remember it, but I'd much rather hear the story from you. Can you tell us what the
Paul, you have a memory that rivals that of my wife. But I'm glad you're bringing up a good story. Otherwise, I get the honeydew list. So let's jump right into it. In 2004, my wife, who I'm bringing up so affectionately, and I suffered a tremendous tragedy. We lost a child, and I took a job closer to home, just the closest geographic school that enabled me to spend as much time in my home and as much time with her and have a job as we went through this very painful process. And I wound up by happen chance, not looking at the school, just picking the closest school. Lo and behold, I picked the most difficult and challenged school in all of New York City. To give you some context, it had a 17% graduation rate. There were 256 felonies within the building. The building had 48 security guards and 18 armed policemen. And this is school. This is not a correctional facility. This is school. So welcome to the neighborhood. Remarkably, I walked in and knew almost every single child in the building from my 20-some-odd years of prior experience. And the principal and supervisor, in their infinite wisdom, selected some of the most difficult children in the building and said, "Go give them to him." And that they did. They gave me the most difficult children in the building, some of whom had come back after a lot of extenuating circumstances. And they charged me with something I was never asked to do in my life: teach science, because I know no science. To this day, I still don't know the formula for photosynthesis. And I was literally overwhelmed. I mean, I had gang kids, big kids, tough kids, and nothing. I was given a dark room, this time 10 pieces of chalk, a smaller blackboard, and no textbooks, no curriculum guide, nothing. So frantically, I got on the internet with my trusty dusty AOL account and sent out an SOS message to all my friends and colleagues. "Help, I've been charged with teaching science. Send me something, a laptop, a microscope, a telescope, an experiment, a box, anything. Send me a cadaver so we could dissect." I was game for anything. And literally, nothing happened. One day I'm sitting there in the classroom and I get a phone call. "Mr. Ritz, come to the principal's office." And the kids are like, "Yes, he's in trouble. They're firing this guy." I didn't know what I had done this time. And I walk in and the principal's secretary is like, "Mr. Ritz, there's this box. Look at this box." And I look on her desk and there's this huge box. And I'm like, "Thank you. The internet works. My prayers have been answered. Something is here." And I rip open the box like a child on Christmas morning, so excited. And I look inside and I'm like, WTF might be a very appropriate expression. What is this? And I look inside and there are these little teeny tiny things about this big. They look like onions. And I'm like, "Oh, this is a cruel joke." And I pick up the box. I walk with my head between my legs back to the classroom, take this box and throw it behind a radiator near a window in the back of my class and literally forgot about it. Just, back to the doldrums. Fast forward 8 weeks later, there's an incident in class where this skinny little young man is teasing this girl who's about 200 pounds with piercings, tattoos, you name it, big tough girl. And Gonzalo hits her right between the eyes with a joke about her mother. And that's it. It is over. Carol jumps up. She leaves her seat. She's running across the room. And in slow motion, I'm saying, "My career is over." And then remarkably, this kid Gonzalo sticks his hand under the radiator. And then I'm thinking, my career is really over. He's grabbing a weapon, a piece of metal, something. And he comes up with a handful of flowers and starts waving it in Carol's face. These beautiful flowers. And again, I'm like, WTF, where'd the flowers come from? It turns out these weren't flowers, but the box wasn't onions, but in fact were daffodil bulbs. And we look inside and there are hundreds and hundreds of flowers in the box. And that was a teachable moment. We figured we should learn more. And it turns out that the box was actually a gift for my students and I to come and plant these bulbs in a local park where remarkably many years ago, I used to go and smooch with my wife when we were younger, and to get involved with the New York City Parks Commission in greening New York City. So we thought it would be a good idea. And my students and I went on to plant that year 25,000 daffodil bulbs across New York City commemorating 9/11. So much so that the New York City Council invited us down to receive an award. They thought that we were the honors program. They had a little bit of a surprise, but my students dressed up nicely, and that was the beginning of what we call the Green Revolution. Remarkably, all of those 17 students not only finished my class and finished school, but went on to graduate, and all remain successful, integrated, happy, healthy, law-abiding citizens to this day. So it was remarkable, and it's been game on ever since.
It's been game on ever since, and what's so impressive is, as I tried to impress in my introduction, is how you've changed the lives of kids for whom there was no. Can you talk us through how that moment where a kid pulls out what you think is going to be a weapon, and to his shock, horror, and probably fear, it turns out to be a bunch of daffodils, how you turn that moment into an inspirational moment for kids by giving them the responsibility of growing a living thing, which it strikes me was the starting point of this.
Absolutely. You know, the one thing that I love about plants is that if you put a seed in a child's hand, you're making them a promise that if they take care of it, they're going to see that seed grow into something great. And that's really remarkable. I mean, I've been now farming in and across New York City for over 20 years, and I still marvel that the 10,000 little seeds that we planted, 5 weeks ago will be thousands of pounds of food in a matter of weeks for people to grow. Yeah. So with little kids, it's game changing. But this moment that with those particular students came at a very seminal time in New York City history. Number one, Mayor Bloomberg was really advocating for the New Yorkers for Parks movement. We wanted every person to have access to parks. It was a time where they had created tax incentives for buildings to get involved with the green roof movement, for stormwater mitigation. So for my students, I saw an instant connection to living wage jobs. And, never talk to me about education if you're not going to talk to me about opportunity. So I saw the opportunity to move these children, from having little hope and few options to endless possibilities involved with living wage jobs that really transformed, most importantly, their own communities. And we were very adept at taking over dark, abandoned, and unproductive places and turning them into aspirational, inspirational places of productivity. And then you combine that with the good food movement, and we got invited to Whole Foods to sell our food and actually saw real food being sold for cash. It was game on. It was, as I say, growing our way into a whole new economy. So it's kind of being a little bit of a visionary into the future, seeing what has failed in the past and connecting dots to create structural change and opportunity that really helps all communities, all schools, and most importantly, the residents. I'm so proud of my students today. I'm in touch with so many of them still. It's remarkable.
There are aspects of what you achieved, of what the consequences of some of these decisions that you took at the time, what happened, that still make me cry, that bring tears to my eyes to think about them. So just to give a couple, that you saw kids that were hopeless cases or thought to be hopeless cases graduate, as you said. But you told me a story one time about a guy who, with your help, because you were growing foodstuffs, they were taking food home, they were learning how to cook healthier food, which had health implications and work possibility implications, not only for the child, but also for their parents and also for the child's siblings. It allowed the excess food to be sold, and you'd have garden markets and so on and so forth, which allowed them to learn a bit more about maths and about accounting and so on and so forth, leading to one kid, I think you're saying, being the first member of his entire family, transgenerational, to ever have a bank account. And that story still brings goosebumps to my arms and raises the hairs on the back of my neck. I know all these things happen. We'll let people find out some of the stories by reading The Power of a Plant, which is such an inspirational book. Can we talk about what it meant to you, how the first invitation, how the first trip to the White House came about, how that first contact with Obama happened?
Oh, remarkably. It's so interesting. I just want to digress a little, Paul, because so much has changed since I've seen you last. And a lot of my work then was with older students, disconnected youth. Yep. Now a bulk of my work is centered on younger children when they're really impressionable. And I just want to share with you that my students in the poorest congressional district of America, in addition to feeding themselves, their families, and the school, now grow up until the COVID crisis, and we could discuss that later, but got involved with growing food for senior citizens who are recovering from cancer and food insecure. So we were with my little guys, in addition to all the wonderful things that we were doing, growing 100 bags of groceries per week for senior citizens, prescriptive leafy greens to help cure them and have them recover from cancer. So it's really been remarkable. The evolution of the work has really been amazing. And the book, The Power of a Plant, believe it or not only did it go on to Audible, but we are going to be releasing a full-length documentary highlighting the expansion of Green Bronx Machine across the United States. Because since I've seen you last, I've gotten my legs under me, and we are expanding to 19 states and 21 cities, and we have transformed schools in some of the most marginalized communities across the country. So it's I can't wait to share the documentary with you. Now, the craziest thing about the invite to the White House is in my book, my famous line is, I know a guy. Like all of us, we all know someone. And one day I was I was at an event in downtown Manhattan, and someone walks up to me and goes, "Are you Steve Ritz?" And I said, sometimes I don't always want to answer that in affirmative answers for a variety of reasons, but I did say yes. And he said, "Great. I have a question. Are your images on the internet trademarked?" And I was like, "What? Images on the internet? I didn't even know I was on the internet. You know, I still have an AOL account and a VCR that says 12 o'clock. So I'm like, oh no, I didn't know that. And he goes, "Well, I'm making a presentation and I decided I wanted to use some of your images." I said, "Well, that's great. Who are you?" And he goes, and I mean, I'm looking at this guy. He's so impeccably dressed, titanium glasses, platform shoes with the craziest of heels, and so spit-shined, it's remarkable. So he sticks his hands out and he goes, "My name is Bill Yassis. I'm the White House pastry chef under Mrs. Obama." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And he goes, "And by the way, you know, we love your TED Talk at the White House." And I was like, I almost fell out of my seat dying. And remarkably, Bill and I took up in a friendship. We met. So of course you could use my images. I'm delighted. I'm humbled. I'm honored. And literally, as you know, Bill came to our class, continued to come to our class, and became a regular fixture, you know, from our greenhouse to the White House, and invited our students down. We actually cooked in the White House kitchen. I need to send you a great picture. This past December, I actually got to meet Mrs. Obama. We had a great conversation. You know, I always say I love my wife, but I do have a girlfriend on the side that posed for a picture just once. And she continues to inspire me. So I'm forever grateful to Bill and the White House. We were named Champions of Change, invited for, you know, the STEM Fest. And my little guys actually built the garden and debuted it inside the White House and behind the White House. And, you know, President Obama himself talked about us in we were invited to South by Southland and highlighted our work in National Geographic. I can't wait to catch you up on my newest, latest, greatest presentation. So many good shots.
Just tell me what that moment meant to the kids that were involved.
Wow. So, you know, they still talk about it. We still share the pictures. You know, but and I think now more than ever, in light of what's going on, this moment is really, and that moment becomes infinitely more significant to them.
Yeah.
But for children, you know, who come from the poorest congressional district in America, so disconnected in so many ways, to be invited to the White House to cook, and more importantly, and this is the untold story about the trip to the Obama White House multiple times, is that unlike the present White House, and I'll leave it at that, the Obama White House was incredulously diverse. You would walk into the Obama White House, and the people who were working there looked like the people we saw every day in New York City. Yeah. And the one thing that my students kept asking is how we met a guy working in the White House kitchen who came from the Bronx, 4 blocks over, and went to Taft High School. I'll never forget. And the children, how'd you get this job? Who'd you know? You know, Mr. Ritz always knows someone, but who'd you know? And they simply said, I applied for the job. I went to school and I applied for the job. It was about access. It was about opportunity. It was about equity. So I miss those days right about now. But I think, you know, some of the children that we took, believe it or not, they were not the best of the lot. They are all the best of the lot in their own ways. But we had a child, a young man, who we had caught stealing from us. And a lot of kids a lot of teachers in the school wanted to write him off. We had a 10-year-old who really did something egregious. And it was egregious because we took it personally. He stole money, he stole property, and it was significant. And the reality is, he took the money and didn't even know what to do with it. We figured out backwards. He had it hid under his bed because he was afraid to tell his mom. Then his mom was annoyed. And at the end of the day, the school wanted to suspend him because of the amount of money involved and the kind of infraction it represented. And all he was really going to do with it was buy candy for the rest of his life because that's all he really wanted. And that was the only purchase available to him. And a lot of people wrote him off. And a lot of people said we should expel him and put him out of the program. He was a young man we took in. And, my wife and I made a very conscious decision. How do you write off a 10-year-old? Today, he's an honor student. He comes and visits us. He volunteers. He's a rock star. So to have him at the Obama White House was just amazing. I was amazed Secret Service let me in, quite frankly. But, if they had known what he had done, trust me, he would have been, listed for life. So it goes to show you how inclusive, how welcoming the White House, the Obama White House was, and what this moment can mean for a child.
How we miss those days.
Indeed.
Something else I want to talk to you about before we perhaps go to another clip. This is not just in the States, Stephen. You've exported this elsewhere. Your curriculum is being used in hundreds of schools across the States, but also internationally, from Colombia to Dubai, Canada to Cairo, to Doha, to beyond. What does it mean that what you have created resonates internationally and is serving children so many thousands of miles from where you first had this idea?
Well, it speaks to one thing, that good practice and good procedure and good policy are applicable everywhere. Yeah. I'm humbled and flattered, and you've touched on so many interesting things. Just last week, I was the host of a model United Nations that connected students from the Emirates and Qatar and South America. Students who are not using my curriculum, but instead are but are fascinated by my work and continue to learn about me. And, the one thing that, the UAE has afforded me is an opportunity to be a peace promoter. Sure, I'm a teacher. Sure, I'm a farmer. But the opportunity to sow seeds of peace and be a messenger of tolerance is really remarkable. And I certainly want to thank Dr. Abdullah Al-Karam of KHDA for embracing me so warmly. I'm proud to call the UAE my second home. I do have a residence in the sustainable city. I'm proud to be the Director of Health, Wellness, and Innovation for ESOL Education, working at Fairgreen International. And to think that a replica of my classroom, which, by the way, was funded by the Global Teacher Prize, runner-up money, is remarkable. We could take a look at that clip right now so you see what's going on in my classroom. But I'm forever grateful. And before we go, I just want to tell you how excited I am to be working, something you may not know, with His Highness the Green Sheikh of Ajman on a series of new projects in children's books. So let's go check out this clip.
Fantastic. So we're going to watch the Welcome to the National Health, Wellness and Learning Center, a 2-minute video walk through the classroom.
Welcome to the National Health, Wellness and Learning Center. This is a place of wonder, aspiration, inspiration, 21st century technology. Every child deserves an environment they can be excited and happy to be a part of.
Steve Ritz is committed to the youth of the Bronx, and I'm happy to be part of this program, which is really turning kids around.
What you get here with the Green Bronx Machine and with this learning center, it checks off so many boxes.
We have our tower gardens. We are net positive on food and energy. We have bicycle-powered blenders, bicycle-powered generators. We have a state-of-the-art Green Bronx Machine mobile classroom kitchen, which is game-changing. We have the first living ecosystem in the United States. Unit 001 of Grove Lab is right in the back of our classroom. Literally, the fish and plants are communicating with the kids online.
We want our kids to learn. We want them to be happy and enthusiastic and energetic about learning. Steve Ritz and Louis Torres do exactly that here at CS 55.
55! All right, follow me. You're going to be amazed with this. 3, 2, 1, see, say, play! We can encourage kids to think about a brighter, better future for themselves and for their neighbors, not only immediately, but all around the world.
Let us turn up the beat!
Every year, we're raising up a new crop of kids who understand what food is.
Oh my gosh, you even got what kind of? It's a lima bean. Wow.
Please check out the Green Bronx Machine website. Make a donation. Support our projects. Help us grow something greater. Also, the kids run the Facebook page, so like the kids on Facebook, and we're just getting started.
I hope that all of you will remember today as a way that a community comes together to support all of your dreams.
So that's if you didn't guess it already, that's a pretty good visual cue of 2-minute video walk through Stephen's National Health, Wellness and Learning Center classroom. And can I commend you, or direct you to StephenRitz.com, which is Stephen's own personal website, but also the Green Bronx Machine website, which is greenbronxmachine.org, which is just a fantastic resource, not just for kids, not just for parents, and not just for teachers, but for all of us. Do have a look, greenbronxmachine.org. Stephen, I have to ask you a simple question, which I should have perhaps asked at the front. What are you wearing on your head?
I'm wearing a cheese hat. Of course, my world famous cheese hat. Because many years ago, when I was 330 pounds, believe it or not, with a 54-inch waist, I should grab my t-shirt and show you. But the children called me the Big Cheese. And literally, I would walk around school just, eating what was available in the community. Fried chicken, pizza, and soda. And I went, over the course of time from being about 190 pounds to bottoming out or blowing up to 330. And wow. Literally one day in my classroom, my daughter used to bring me, we used to go to school together. She would join me in school and then walk to her school. I started earlier in the morning. I passed out in front of her from, heart disease, prediabetes, a cirrhotic liver. I was on God knows how much medication. And I decided right then and there that I was not willing to put my family through the duress of a slow death. And made some simple choices and lost 110 pounds, but became a building leader and a school administrator and went to my first educational conference in Wisconsin. And when I got off the plane, saw this cheese hat. And for years, the kids had been calling me the Big Cheese. I was wearing a farmer's hat and gave up, the cheese, the farmer hat for the cheese hat, and the rest is history. My wife has kindly brought me a pic of my shirt. And to give you some context and the viewers, this is how big I used to be. I don't even know if you could see it against the green screen or not, but
it won't even, it doesn't even fit on the screen.
It doesn't even fit on the screen.
Listen, we talked a little bit about President and First Lady Obama, and we know what fans they are of yours. But you're also, you have influenced so many people and you have empowered so many people. Can we talk about, you mentioned the UAE before we saw the last clip. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with His Highness Dr. Sheikh Abdulaziz bin Ali bin Rashid Al Nuaimi, and what that relationship means to you? Because I know that you and he are great fans of each other, and he's
my brother. Literally,
he can exercise some power.
Literally, he has become my brother, my text bestie. We speak several times a week. I'm actually doing a radio show with him this Friday in UAE, but his story is even more remarkable than mine. I will let you interview him to find out his backstory. But, here's a guy who's putting the H back into human, as I like to say. And, connecting, it's just remarkable. He has put the human back into humanity. He lives in a land and a mindset of what he calls impossible-less, and is putting unity back into community. We were introduced through our friend Fida Slayman at KHDA because I had always wanted to ride a camel. That's the backstory. And he is very involved with securing a sustainable and viable future for the desert. And he's many things, including a keeper of camels and wonderful children. and his children were fascinated by my work. And he actually took me out to the desert, and I rode the camel, which of course went on to make history when I fell off the camel and that crazy American falls off the camel. But we stuck up a friendship. And that's the most important thing, is our friendship, because I believe, as does he, that the things that bring us together are far greater than the things that separate us. And we just need to focus on those things. And his interest in the planet, in sustainability and urban farming, and actually philanthropic work is just so inspiring. To see the work that he does behind the scenes that many people are not aware of is absolutely inspirational to me. So we've become very close friends. We're working on an amazing book, which will be followed with a series of initiatives called Bringing the Farm to the Desert. And we're going to be bringing a series of urban farms. You can watch a couple of, I'll show you a couple of pictures of what they look like in a moment. But literally, we are writing a book about inclusivity, being kind to each other and our mother, the planet, and also focusing on health, wellness, sustainability, and global empathy, because now more than ever, and we started the concept for this book long before it was even fashionable. Now it's absolutely necessary. And certainly the global events of today just call how important it is. And it's also, you know, I commend him because I come from a very different cultural background than him. He's invited me into the mosque. He's had my wife. I've been to his home. He's embraced my wife, my daughter. I mean, he is such an elegant and eloquent spokesperson for all that is good and all that is possible. So I'm honored to call him my friend, my brother, my colleague. You know, I'm interviewing with you today. I'll be speaking with him on Friday and inspiring yet thousands more. And my goal is to bring him to the United States and be part of the Green Sheikh Academy.
I had the pleasure of being a friend of Maya Angelou's for quite some time, Dr. Maya Angelou. And some of what you just said has reminded me, when I first met her, we thought we were polar opposites. By the end of an hour and a half, we were holding hands and singing together. And as I left, she gave me the bookmark that she'd marked the page from which she'd read from. And it's one of my treasured possessions. And on it says, "I note the obvious differences between each style and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike." And there's so much of what you do that always puts me in mind. I wish I could have introduced you to her. I think you'd have got on fantastically. You're going to show us.
I guess in tribute, I've got to say, you know, I'm holding my book, The Power of a Plant, in front of me. Maybe you see it, maybe you can't.
We can see it.
I, you know, right in my opening acknowledgments, my wish for you is that you continue to be who you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Maya Angelou. And that's in my book. So, you know, no wonder why we get along so well.
Actually, just so you know, we haven't made this up. We haven't rehearsed any of this. That really is
it's remarkable.
an extraordinary coincidence.
Continue to be kind. That's what this work is all about. To be kind to yourself and others.
You want to show us a couple of pictures? Would you like to introduce them?
So I'll share with you. I mean, I'd love to show you a couple of pictures of me with the students across the UAE in tribute to how much love, how much respect, and how much encouragement these amazing children give me in my second home. They've just embraced a total stranger and really done amazing things. And I'd like to jump to a quick flip book of images showing you the technology that we use, which is both applicable indoors and outdoors. And this is 24 days on an urban farm here in New York City. This is not Photoshop. These are children growing food, working harder, not working harder, but working smarter, using 90% less water, 96% less space, and really growing something greater. And realize this, whether you like fresh fruit and vegetables or not, I've never met a child or an adult who's allergic to money. So if I were to give you a penny, Paul, and say, take this penny, put it in the soil, and in 30 days, I'll give you a $5 bill, you might want a lot of these pennies. And this technology really represents the entrepreneurial opportunities that exist now around growing fresh, healthy, local food. So that, to me, is what it's all about. And then also teaching the little ones, you'll see some amazing pictures of happy plates, because what the COVID crisis teaches us, it presents an opportunity for our kitchens and our homes to become teaching labs, to take the time to cultivate a healthy palate, a sustainable palate, and to make healthy eating fun. For so long, we've strived for convenient and gotten nowhere except obese and sick. Now we have the time to make healthy eating fun, to model a healthy plate, to work with our children, to grow food, to teach them how to present it, to teach them how to eat it. So as I'm speaking, I'm hoping, you get to see these amazing images. And I'm just so inspired by what is possible in the UAE and around the world.
Bless you. Thank you for that. Fantastic images too. Okay, we don't have much more time, and there's a little video that we want to end with. So a couple of quick questions from me, Stephen, please.
Sure.
I'm concerned about what you're doing in this time of COVID and what's happening in the Bronx. I'm also concerned that what you are going through across the Atlantic from where I am is going to be repeated around the world with teachers who find themselves in even more dire situations than you find themselves in, and with parents who are struggling badly, not only with COVID, but with the social upheaval, political upheaval, all these anxiety-inducing, fear-making factors that are at play in the world at the minute. As you are an inspirer, and as you do lead from the front, what message of support or counsel can you give such people?
So, number one, no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And the degree to which we resist injustice is the degree to which we are free. So, if you are not standing with the oppressed, you are sitting and dining with the oppressor. So it is time for, it's not enough to say, I'm not a racist. It's not enough to say that. It's important to be anti-racism actively and to actively work to end this crisis in our society. You can put the video on now and I'll share with you that, the power of literature, the power of books. I tell my students that they are my princes and princesses. They are my little princes and little princesses. And I know every teacher, every competent teacher feels the same way about them. So the idea is to plant seeds, seeds of food, seeds of hope, seeds of opportunity, and know that these seeds can give you a crop of epic proportions if well nurtured. And that's what this is about. And that's what my whole story is about. Starting with an idea, growing something greater, and watching the miracle of life unfold in front of you as it is happening, as you're growing it in your classroom, in your backyard, in your home, and in your community. So I urge everyone to come together, grow something greater, get your personal set of green shoes and camel ties, cheese hats, and bow ties, and get out there and make epic happen. Because unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to change. No, it is not. But at my core and in my soul, I believe that teachers change lives. And every child is an author. And that's what LitFest is all about. Because every child has a story to tell, every teacher has a story to tell, and our stories are our ladders of success and our ladders to success, our ladders to equality, our ladders to equity. So I thank LitFest for celebrating not only me, but for celebrating all the authors, and most importantly, embracing the children, because they are our leaders and our readers and our authors of tomorrow.
Amen to that, Stephen. One last question from me. The two children in that classroom, the girl and the boy, who were about to have a fight when the daffodils came to play. Just tell us how that story ended. What happened to them?
Well, they both graduated. Carol went on so remarkably. I'm glad you asked. was so troubled and really was entitled to give Gonzalo the whipping he deserved, actually went on to work in Hurricane Katrina to help rebuild the city of New Orleans with some of the skills she got through our training program. So she's a hero. Today, she's a social worker, and Gonzalo is involved in the whole food industry. He's involved in the urban garden movement. So many of these children I stay in touch with all the time. And those are two of the many successes. But most importantly, there was no fight. I kept my job. They graduated. They are proud, productive, contributing members of society today. And that's a happy ending. That's a story worth reading.
That's a story worth reading. And just quickly, tell us about the second book, Make It Happen, because I understand that all the proceeds from that are going to helping teachers. Is that right? Or have I got that wrong?
Oh, no, you got it somewhat right, but even better. It's even better. It's helping parents. So I went on. Make It Happen is a series of leveled readers that's available in the UAE. There's upper grades and lower grades. It highlights my odyssey and my teacher's journey in a very fun book with depth of knowledge questions, asking for help, internet links. It features my work across the UAE, my friendship with Dr. Abdullah, my journey. And all of the proceeds, believe it or not, go to hire parents who live in public housing, to work in public schools for living wage in health, wellness, and nutrition programming. And I'm proud to say we've gone on to hire parents, have nutrition programs, have grandparents feeding students daily, and it has literally become a movement of its own. But I am absolutely excited, and I'm inviting myself now to next year's festival to premiere the book, Bringing the Farm to the Desert with my brother, the Green Sheikh, and also debut the documentary, which I know will move hearts and minds to a call to action.
Stephen, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Our love from all of us at Lockdown LitFest to you and all the kids and parents that you're working with, that you're inspiring, to your wife, who has been so brilliant and supportive of everything. And for those of you who have been listening to every word Stephen has been saying and entranced by, we know we're a global LitFest and we're being listened to and watched from all around the world. Stephen's been talking about the UAE because he's been working with a sheikh in the UAE on his new book, and because he and I first met in the United Arab Emirates. But don't let that distract you. This is a global movement, and it could be in your country. Get hold of Stephen at stephenritz.com. Get hold of the Green Bronx Machine at thegreenbronxmachine.org. They'd love to hear from you. They are very supportive, and we need them in our lives. Stephen Ritz, thank you very much indeed. Such a pleasure to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, as ever, from all of us here at the Lockdown LitFest, keep well, keep safe, be careful, and love the people you love. Thank you for joining us. Cheerio.
Thank you. Shukran.